to allow all attendees to hear you. This system will notify you once you begin your broadcast. The broadcast is now starting. All attendees are in listen-only mode.
Michael, can you
Hello?
hear me?
I can. This is Michael. Can you hear me?
Hi, yes. It's not
Perfect.
letting me promote you to an organizer.
I joined from my phone.
Yeah, that's why I think.
Yeah.
Do you need to be
I
sharing
I
your screen?
I I don't know.
Okay.
Yeah. The only thing that I would be showing is just the agenda. So maybe if you wanted to share your screen, if you have the agenda.
Okay. Yeah, I can do that. Get that pulled up here.
And then
Can you see the attendee list? Maybe
I can.
you can.
I can. It's myself and Mr. James Zhao from Quanta.
Yep.
Yeah, yes, this is James Zhao. Can you hear me?
I can, yes. Hi JJ, how are you? It's Michael Schill and Kaylee Burdett.
How are you? Yeah.
Oh, doing well. Thanks for joining. I know it's early over there.
Yeah, it's around 4 o'clock in the morning. That's
Oh,
okay.
Oh, wow.
That's okay. I went to sleep early last night.
That's
Michael, do
why
you
we
want
only
me
do
to?
it once every 6 weeks.
Yeah. Michael, do you want me to start bolding people as they come in?
Yeah,
Okay.
please do.
Okay.
And then on the agenda, everyone that's listed as a speaker there will need to share their screen. So they'll need to be organizers for sure.
I hope that everyone who needs to share logs in a way that, I can do that.
If not, I think a quick email would solve that. I could just email it to someone.
And let them know to get on. Well, if they're sharing their screen, I'm sure they're going to be on a computer. So
Exactly.
are you on the phone app?
I am. I haven't used it before, and I'm actually in the car right now, so I wanted to test that out.
Okay. Yeah, I just want to make sure that I'm guessing if it's a phone app, you can't be an organizer, but that makes sense because you can't really share anything. So can you guys see the agenda?
Yeah, I can see it. This is James.
Perfect.
I can see it. So,
Yep.
I'm trying to test my audio. I'm going to mute it and I speak. Let me know you hear that or not. Okay.
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 Okay. I mute it.
It would appear to be working.
Yeah, we didn't hear you.
Did you hear I say hello, hello? No, right?
Nope.
Right.
Did not hear that at all. You are
Oh, okay.
you are
So it's
muted.
working. Yeah, it's working. Thank you.
I'm actually going to try the same thing. I don't know how to mute myself on the phone app.
You on the screen, the right top, there is a speaker. That's for mute. You know.
Perfect. I see it, and I was able to mute myself.
Okay.
I said Kaylee had blonde hair, so if you guys didn't hear me say that, then my mute works.
Nice choice.
Couldn't think of anything to say, so just picked on you.
Okay, sorry, Michael, I got a call, but I'm here now.
Okay.
All right, looks like Doug has logged in. Doug, can you hear us?
I can hear you. Can you hear me?
Yes, we can.
Okay, good.
Looks like Bill is logging in. Bill, I see you're muted. Can you unmute yourself and let me know if you are going to be needing to share some slides?
Yeah, can you hear me?
Yes, I can.
Yeah, I don't have any. I'm traveling, so I don't have any slides to share.
Okay, I just wasn't able to make you an organizer, so I figured you were on your phone, but just wanted to make sure.
Yeah.
All right.
I'll probably stay on mute most of the meeting.
Okay, you have something on the agenda, but you can see it there.
Yeah, I sent out some material last night, so I can talk to that.
Okay, perfect. Looks like Tom has logged in. Hi, Tom. Can you hear us?
I can hear you well.
Great.
How's it going?
Good. This is Kaylee. Nice to speak with you.
Nice to hear you too, Kaylee.
All right. Scott Emery, you have arrived?
Yeah, I'm here. Can you hear me?
Yes. Great. Mark Shaw, you have arrived?
Tom, are you still in Europe?
Nope, I'm back in the USSA. I mean, the USA.
All right.
So this is John. Do you hear me?
I can hear you, John.
Okay. It said I had logged in as listen only mode, so I was curious. Thank you.
Hey, this is Mark. Can you hear me?
Yep, Mark, hear you too.
Excellent.
I think Haley's walking through and unmuting everybody after they join.
Yes, that is correct. I think I have everyone currently unmuted. So if you are muted, it's your own doing right now. All right.
Golly, before we get going, is there a way with this GoToMeeting to see who the other people who are on the call are?
Yes, it actually, you should already be able to see it. It's an option that I have selected. Scott, are you the one who asked that question?
Yes.
It says that you're logged in via web, which means I think you probably didn't download it. So I'm wondering if that gives you limited options. Can everyone else see the attendees?
Yeah.
I had to hit the red arrow to see them.
Yeah, you hit this arrow to get to the control.
Yeah, maybe Scott, if you have to click around a little.
If you've joined via mobile app, then you can see the attendees list at the bottom of your screen. Click where it says attendees.
I don't think he's on the mobile. I think he's on the web application, but
Yeah, I just logged in with Chrome, and I don't see it on here. Maybe I'll have to see if I download an app.
Did it give you an option to download it on your computer, Scott?
No, it didn't. I'm running Ubuntu Linux, so that may be why.
Oh, I did recently learn that GoToWebinar is not friends with Linux, so that might be why.
Yeah.
Hey, it's Bob O'Grade's on. I think I'm on the web app too. I couldn't get it to work on my Windows PC. It works on my iPad. Let me see if I can download the app.
And we can definitely announce at the beginning who all is on the call once we get started, just to let everyone know if that's something we wanted to do.
But from the web, can I share a document, or do I have to use the app?
I guess whoever is going to be presenting and showing their screen, I need to know so that I can make you an organizer. Let me see if it's up here. Who asked that question?
So I'll just.
This is John Leon.
Okay, so I need to make you. All right, perfect. I'm promoting you now, John. Let's see. He needs. Rob needs to be promoted.
Yeah, Kylie.
Amir, I got you unmuted.
Kylie, Mark Shaw, you could promote me also.
All right, someone's got some. If you're not speaking, can you mute yourself just so that we got some road noise, I think, going on? Mark, did you ask me a question?
Yeah, can you make me a presenter also?
Yes.
Thank you.
Mark Shaw, are you making you an organizer right now? Does anyone else on the call need to be made an organizer because you will be sharing your slides or your screen? All right. Rob Bunger does, but he's not on yet, so we'll wait for him. Omar. I don't see Omar either.
Hi, Mark. Are you on the call?
Yeah. Hi, Rob.
Hey, it's Michael. Great to talk to you again. You're probably tired of hearing my voice today. Just real quick, while I've got you on the phone, go ahead and check your spam folder if you would. I think some of the confirmation emails for some of those agreements may be in your spam folder.
Yeah, I'm going back and forth.
Okay, no worries.
Yeah, since I have 18 or 19 to sign, it's
it's a lot. It's all good.
Yeah.
Thanks.
Thanks.
Hey guys, I know we're waiting for a couple people like Omar, but they might be more project specific. Do we want to get going? It's already 8 minutes after the hour.
Michael, do we want to go ahead and start? I think were we waiting on Dirk and, oh, Bill's here.
Yeah, so Dirk and Rocky and Art are on their way to the airport. We had a meeting this morning with the Linux Foundation, so I'm actually downtown at the ferry terminal, and I'll catch a ferry here in the next hour. So I'll try to stay on mute most of the time, but we can get started, Michael or Kaylee. I think the agenda was up to date.
Okay.
Yeah, I think you're the first person on the agenda, Bill. With,
I am? Okay.
Upcoming workshops, yeah.
Okay. Yeah. Hopefully Dirk can chime in. I actually don't have an update on the workshops.
I can go ahead and start with my GoToWebinar update, and then if Dirk chimes in or is able to get in later, we can have him talk about the workshops. Is that okay?
Okay. Yep, that makes sense.
Okay, so for all of you who don't know, my name is Kaylee Burdett, and I am the new meeting and event manager for OCP. I've been here just about a month, so I'm pretty new. And I just wanted to talk to you quickly about our GoToWebinar conversion. You probably have seen some emails from me come through with projects and those types of things, but Michael and I did successfully convert everything to GoToWebinar. I believe it was last week. And so from now on, all of our project calls and IC calls will be using GoToWebinar instead of Fuse and some of the other systems we've been using in the past. So how it's going to work moving forward is I will schedule and manage every single call with Michael as my backup. So we are hoping that with an OCP staffer on every call, it will eliminate some of the problems we've had, some of the difficulties with these systems, and will hopefully make it a better experience for everyone moving forward. We just really like GoToWebinar. It's very user-friendly. It's much easier to navigate than Fuse and some of the other tools. So, you're experiencing it here today, so hopefully we'll have a good experience. And certainly let me know if you have any questions about it. How it's going to work is I will schedule all the calls and launch all the calls and moderate as far as audio and questions and those types of things work. But then the project leads are still in charge of, generating the agendas, driving the discussion, and, that kind of thing. So on the website, under the projects and the project meeting calendar, I'm showing you on my screen, you'll see the master calendar at the top, which has all the projects on it. Also has OCP on the road when we're co-locating at an event. But then if you scroll down, you'll see all the individual project calendars. So if you want to go ahead and opt into the data center or hardware management, you can do that and just get those calls on your calendar. The subgroups are on there as well. And then, or you can add the master calendar if you want to know about everything going on. So we're just really excited about this conversion. We hope this is going to be an easier tool for everyone to use and just a better experience moving forward. So if you guys have any questions, certainly let me know, but I'm happy to be here and excited to work with you all.
Hi, Kaylee, really quick, this is Michael. While we're on the website, would you mind showing them where they can find the IC calendar? It's underneath the incubation committee page under About.
Yeah, so if you go to About, drop down, incubation committee.
Yeah, all your lovely headshots.
And then you'll scroll down. Yeah, sorry, that would have been more helpful to show you. But you can see the incubation committee meetings on this calendar.
And a pro tip, you can just Google OCP IC and get here just as quickly.
Oh, great tip. Thank you.
Yep.
I did not know that. That's great.
So Bill, it looks like you're up next with OCP projects.
Jim,
Yeah, let me try to
calendar, if you don't mind. I still have a lingering invite on my calendar that has the Fuse meeting info on there. I don't know if you sent out an updated invite to all the IC members. I was able to get here using the IC calendar, but having that in people's inbox could be useful too.
So go ahead, Michael.
So, Aaron, we did go through and delete all those old calendar and calendar invites on our end. The issue arises if you've accepted it onto your personal calendar, then unfortunately we no longer control that if you've copied it over. So you'll have to just go in, click delete all for the series, and then that'll go away entirely. We did send out the invite a few weeks prior, and we'll continue to do that hopefully about a month in advance for all these IC calls now that we have our new system.
So you're sending them out a few weeks prior, not sending out a recurring invite for every meeting.
Kaylee, do we have a recurring invite?
I think we're doing reoccurring invites for all the projects, but I'm not sure about the IC. Is it, Michael, did we do a recurring for IC, or is it not a recurring at a particular date every time?
I have both. I have a reoccurring meeting that occurs every 6 weeks, and I have one for today.
Yes, same here.
Got it.
Oh, great.
Okay, we'll double check after this call and just make sure. We'll double check after this call and just make sure that we have one going and that's all we need. So we can check into that.
Got it. Okay.
So, Kaylee, I can give a quick update on upcoming workshops.
Okay.
Yeah. So we just finished up an event over in Berlin, Broadband World Forum. We were given a booth space over there, and we held a OCP experience area, and we had a great location on the exhibition floor. We took over an open rack and a CG Open Rack 19, and had it populated with the CG Open Rack 19 populated with a compute node from 80Link and a compute node from Radisys, and populated the top of rack shelf with a OCP accepted switch from EdgeCore. In the open rack, it was provided by Rital out of Europe, and we brought a couple of Cubby chassis with us. We populated it with a Gigabyte compute sled, a Inspur compute sled, and a couple of WeWin compute sleds, as well as a Lightning storage system where they demoed some M.2 storage and some 2.5-inch SSD storage in there. Booth had pretty good interest. We got to demo it to a lot of the carriers that were at the event. But more importantly, we actually demoed and had EdgeCore in the booth with us. They had their XGS PON system and a couple other switches. And Tom was over there as well with the Cord and Open Network Foundation, and had a demo of some open access. And he was probably our biggest booth worker. He was hauling people over from the ONF booth into the OCP experience area to walk people through. So anything you want to add there, Tom?
No, the traffic went both ways. I think we had a pretty good synergy going, I think, between the ONF booth and the OCP booth. It was pretty good.
Yeah, it was. So next week we have the TIP Foundation, the TIP Summit meeting in Santa Clara area. Tom is actually, are they calling that a keynote that you're doing, Tom, or just a presentation?
I think they're calling it a keynote.
It's a keynote. It's a keynote.
Okay.
And it's largely going to be kind of an introduction to OCP at what we're up to in the telco group, since there's a joint workshop from the telco work group there, and a call to action to kind of put some meat behind the new arrangement that that OCP has worked out with TIP to collaborate.
And so Tom's talking about the collaboration with the Universal CPE device. That spec is coming out, and we have several different suppliers that have expressed interest in building products that meet that spec. So that's next week. Well, we got a Ron on. Is there anything you'd like to add about the TIP Summit?
No, I mean, I think maybe I should do a quick plug here. So we will have quite a few keynotes from operators globally, worldwide. So in addition to Tom, we'll have folks joining us from Voda, from Geo, from Telefonica, from Deutsche Telekom. They're going to be talking a lot about the sorts of things we talk about in OCP, in the sense that what they're doing is in various project groups that are generally more focused and kind of driven to a very specific mission compared to OCP, which is kind of like a broad area. They're working on various efforts of disaggregation, both in software, hardware, and both, and just creating open interfaces that allow newcomers as well as incumbents kind of compete for a more flexible stack, especially from an operations perspective for those folks. So UCPE is just a great model of kind of the synergy between OCP and TIP, the common kind of shared approach or aspects of doing stuff. And the last thing I'll say is, if you guys want a free pass, I can probably help you get that. Or the OCP Foundation folks can help out with that. So reach out to us, and be happy to see some folks from the IC and the project groups there if you can make it. It's Wednesday and Thursday in Santa Clara, in the convention center.
Yeah, I think Kaylee has some passes that she can register, help you get registered. Concurrent with the TIP Summit, we also have the DCD event in London, the Zeta structure. Steve Helvey and John Levan from the foundation will be there and running that. We have a data center workshop scheduled with a pretty full agenda over there. The data center group has finished up their is a white paper on recommendations for implementing OCP racks in a colo facility, and they're talking about that, disclosing that. They also have a checklist to help the colo operators. It was authored by, I guess, probably a dozen different companies that put this checklist together over the last few months. RomoNet, a software, some company out of the UK that does simulation software, has actually simulated some of the recommendations that they're making in that white paper, and has updated their portal that shows the impact on efficiency measured in PUE and energy consumption of using OpenRack hardware. So if you get a minute take a look at the RomoNet. So it's ROMONET. Take a look at their site, and you can look at their online portal and take a look at that. So they'll talk about that tool kind of in conjunction with that paper. Microsoft's also doing some Olympus announcements there and disclosures. And I think if we have Mark Shaw in line, maybe he can kind of give us a 5-minute update.
Yeah, we'll be talking a little more about the Olympus stuff afterwards, but we're doing the big follow-up from last year on Olympus. We have some other great talks and discussions on security, predominantly security, and be in the workshop. We're trying to open source what we call Project Cerebus, which is a how do you add more hardware level security. I think we've got some keynotes too. So Kushagra Vaid, my manager, is giving a keynote, and we've got a keynote. We were kind of surprised from a guy from our supply chain, who the guy who manages our entire supply chain and the data centers and stuff. I think he's going to be talking about dark fiber, I think. So it's going to be a pretty good event. We're going to have half a dozen people over there.
Yeah, it should be a good event. Unfortunately, we had to kind of split our time and split the team between the TIP and the Zeta structure, but should be a good event. And I got a text a minute ago that Dirk's online. So Dirk, is there anything you want to add?
Yeah, I was just going to play off of what Iran said. Yeah, so you can just email me. I also posted, if you want to get tickets to TIP, we do still have some free passes. So you can just send me an email, or I actually posted a blog and on social media. So just reach out to me if you want to get a free pass to that. The other thing that we have going on is we've got the, Josh is going to be speaking at the, let me bring this up, the Open Source Strategy Forum that's going to be in New York. It's on November 8th, and he's speaking at around 3 p.m. And so if anybody would like a pass to that, we'd be happy to get them. They can get a free one. So if you're going to happen to be in the New York area on November 8th, just send me an email. I'm happy to get you access to that one.
And then I think that takes us through November. We had tentatively planned another event with DCD in Toronto. That's actually been put on hold in December. So I think that pretty much takes us out through the end of the year for events. I guess we probably should talk about some upcoming dates with respect to Summit. Kaylee, you want to touch on some of the dates that on the call for participation?
Sure. I actually just sent out today our blog about the call for participation, which I will share on the screen right now. So the survey has launched. So we are looking for, we have 3 keynote sessions available, and then all of our engineering workshop sessions, which you can see the different groups. And then Bill did some great example content for each one. So that survey is live, and the deadline is December 1st, after which the selection committee will go ahead and review all the submissions and make their decisions. And we will be notifying speakers on January 4th.
So the selection committee in this case is going to be the project leads and the IC, and we'll schedule a meeting after we get all the inputs on or requests for presentations. We'll sit down and prioritize like we've done in years past.
Yep. Great.
And then also related to Summit, you know, sponsorships are still coming in, and we're starting to get quite a few reservations for the private meeting rooms. So if you have not turned in your contract for sponsoring Summit, then you're going to want to do that sooner rather than later. There are still some spots open, obviously, for some of the sponsorship levels, but there's been a lot of interest, and it's kind of picking up. So get your contracts in now.
And one last thing, we do have our leadership sprint scheduled in December, and I'm trying to think if it's December 5th or 6th.
It's 6th and 7th.
Got it, yeah. And just a reminder that that is a remote meeting, so you know, don't plan on being there on site. Like we talked about the last meeting, we're going to try to, as much as possible, combine different events and different reasons to travel. And so this was the one, and we said we'd do it. I think we decided we'd do 2 meetings in face-to-face and do the others in a remote setting. So this is the remote call-in. And Archana, do you have anything else to add?
No, just that reminder. Oh,
okay.
Yeah, one last thing. The HPC project group is looking for IC leadership nominations, and I know Michael sent out a note to that effect. If you would like to nominate anyone for this particular role, we're accepting them for the next week, and we'd love to get some feedback on that. So that's it. That's all I have.
Archana, could you say a little more about I knew we had leadership sprint on the 6th of December, but I thought just a moment ago you said the 6th and 7th. Did I mishear that?
Oh, I'm sorry. No, our leadership sprints are always a day before our board meeting. So
all right. It's
that's
just
why
the
I said
6th, right?
Yes, it's on the 6th.
All right, got it.
Okay, Kaylee, what's the next item on the agenda?
Looks like it's John with hardware management ICR.
So we're not doing project governance?
Oh, sorry, Bill. Did you want to talk about SW projects governance?
Yeah, I'll do that real quickly. So I sent a note out yesterday. It's a proposed governance policy for software projects. The background there is that we actually have 4 or 5 software projects that have been, presented to the IC. The IC has voted to accept those. ONI, Sonic, OOM, ONL, and SnapRoute. At the last workshop, when SnapRoute announced that they took the source code off of GitHub, it prompted me to look at how we were treating software projects, and it turns out we actually didn't have any procedures, processes, or governance. So learning quite a bit from governance discussions that's ongoing with the OpenBMC project. I crafted what I think is a lightweight version of a governance policy that can apply to software. We actually had a meeting, coincidentally, with the Linux Foundation, and I had a chance to talk to them a little bit about how they deal with incubating new projects and where they formally go through the acceptance process. So I actually believe that I've captured some of their learnings in this. I'm not asking for a decision or for review on that today. Instead, what I'd like is I'd like to see if there's anyone that would be willing to commit to read it offline and provide me feedback. You don't have to say, you don't have to speak up today, but if you don't mind, send me a note. Let me know that that you're willing to talk to read through it and provide some feedback.
Well, Bill, we'll have somebody at Microsoft. We'll certainly read through it and give you feedback.
I would really appreciate that, Mark. I actually may run it by Badruddin as well. There's some some kind of key learning that we've all been through last month, and I want to make sure that we have a lightweight policy, we have a policy based on meritocracy, and that we have a process that we can lean on when we get these requests that come into the IC.
Yeah, and I'm going to forward it. Badruddin is the right person, and I'll forward it to him.
Okay, thank you.
This is Amir. I'll take a look at it as well. I'll send it by our legal team. As we talked earlier, we're considering making a software contribution as well.
Okay, that's great, Amir.
At this time.
Yeah. So, by the way, I leaned heavily on Scott and Omar when we drafted this, and so it has had a few eyes on it. And I guess what I'm thinking is that we should be able to apply it to our existing software projects. I think we can also apply it in retrospect with SnapRoute, and then ideally use it in the future, moving ahead.
Sure.
So that's all I had. Thanks.
Okay, now it looks like John. John, I'm going to make you presenter. Are you okay with that? John, are you there?
Oh, yes, I am, and yes, you can.
Okay.
Not sure how you present. Oh, there.
It should have you should see a pop-up.
Got it. Okay,
Great.
Does everyone see this?
Yes.
I can. Yeah.
Do you see the full screen, or do you see a block covering it?
We see your whole desktop. The dashboard, we can't see that, only you do, but you can minimize it with the green arrow or the orange arrow if it's in your way.
Oh, cool. Okay, got it. All right. So this is a proposal that I have for an approach to OCP profiles. And this is just asking the IC for agreement on the approach and not anything beyond that. And as we talk about it, projects themselves can decide whether they want to adopt this approach. Okay. So the diagram on the lower right, I've been showing at a couple of meetings of, I think, server, telco, data center has seen this. And it's trying to focus on what the hardware management profile is looking at, because we started with something which looked more like a server profile. And I talked about this at the workshop within the hardware management project. And so I decided to diagram it so I could explain it to people. But what I wanted the hardware management project to focus on was a baseline profile, which could be referenced by all the other platform profiles. And so this would be a common baseline that we could have across all OCP platforms. And then this baseline, wherever we draw it, can rise over time.
So
at the end of it, go ahead.
Hey, this is Mark. I'm not I'm not familiar with profiles and that sort of thing. And so you say server, storage, network. What does that really mean?
That means that a profile is a set of, in Redfish nomenclature, is a set of resources and properties that should exist in order for you to fulfill that profile. And so the baseline would be common across all platforms, and then server would say, yeah, I can do everything the baseline profile has, but there are additional things that the server would need, additional management capabilities that it would need. And the same with storage, that it would say, well, I'm a storage platform, so I need additional manageability capabilities. Does that answer your question?
Yeah, that answers my question.
Okay.
Okay.
So that's why I want the hardware management project to go focus on this low layer and not worry itself too much about domains that it doesn't necessarily have expertise in. So each platform project can create their own profile. The server project can go create its own profile, reference the baseline, and then extend beyond it. Question?
This is Siamak Tavala in Microsoft. Just point of clarity, the interface you're defining is outside a hardware enclosure, right?
Correct.
So it's from outside looking in, that's the interface you just talked about.
Correct, and it'll be clarified in the next slide because originally when I did the slide set, it was for Redfish, which is a off-platform interface. And Bill's response was that this could go beyond just manageability interfaces. The profile concept, right, could be extended to other things. So let me step to that slide real quickly.
The point of my question was, this is an outside looking in. It is not, you're not trying to define a profile or any kind of interfaces between the management controller and the rest of the internals of the hardware platform.
Correct, yeah.
So in simplistic views, this would be the northbound API for a BMC.
If the platform has a BMC.
Good point.
Yeah, but it's the off-platform interface as opposed to the onboard interfaces between the quote controller and the devices on the platform.
Right. In our nomenclature for Project Olympus, that's the interface to the rack manager.
Okay.
That's correct. In fact, that's why we said we have to, kind of take this step and define this, because that interface could be the rack manager and not necessarily a node.
Yeah, yeah, thanks for explaining this. We'll have to take a look at this because our management structure, we use the rack manager as the point of contact for the entire rack, And so it covers power, the rack and the power, and it interfaces to all of the entities inside of the rack.
Okay, so the way I seen the profiles they were staged based on the Redfish interface, and Bill's comment was the profile could also include common utilities like security and security features that would be part of the baseline. I don't know how that would be represented because I know how Redfish represents it. I don't know how we would represent these other capabilities outside a Redfish schema construct.
Yeah, well, the Project Olympus stuff is all Redfish compatible, so I don't. So.
Okay, that makes it easy.
Well, okay,
easier.
So CMAC, that's something we'll have to follow up on.
So my intent is to drive the hardware management project to go define this baseline, and then work with the server project to define its profile and referencing the baseline. And then that's as far as I want it to go. So I could prove this structure out. And then the other projects can adopt as they see fit or need to.
Okay.
That's why this isn't an agreement that you guys are going to follow this. It's just that I'm setting out my path and which way I'm going to move, and you guys can decide what you want to do based on that, whether you have any responses back.
So John, in the workshop, you talked about making a recommendation for the storage network and rack and power profiles. Do you still plan to do that?
I could do that if they want it. Right. So at this point, I know what I want to focus on. And if storage or network says, nice, I don't want to play, that's fine. And then I wouldn't make any proposal because it would not be useful.
Okay. So your plan is to talk to those projects, and then if they decide that they want to do something, help them through that process of establishing a profile for that project. Okay. Thanks.
Correct. I just shown this diagram enough that I figure I should get IC alignment with it before I show it to any more projects. Okay, are there any issues with my proceeding in this manner?
Well, I think it's good.
Okay. Good.
Yeah, same here. No feedback, no concern feedback.
Okay, thank you. The last slide I have, I just want to go through because I don't know if you guys know this, but on a Redfish profile, Redfish profiles are written in a JSON format, but they've also developed a validator which reads this profile and then tests your whatever implementation you have. So this is trying to close the cycle of prescription in describing it and actually getting to conformance tests, so people don't have to write individual conformance tests. We'll write a generic one, which will read anybody's profiles, or whether this is a baseline profile, or whether it's a server profile, or a network profile, right? It just depends on what you use as your input file. Okay. So with that, I think I'm done. Thank you, guys.
Is Rob Bunger on the line?
Hey guys, yep, I'm here. Can you hear me okay?
We can. I think you're up, sir.
All right, sounds good.
Rob, I'm gonna send you the. Do you want me to share on my screen, Rob, or do you want me to send it to you?
Yeah, you can share on. I see you got the presentation I shared with you, right?
Okay, yeah. Just give me 1 second here.
Yeah.
Sorry, I've got a couple screens here going, so I'm trying to find it. All right. Here we go.
All right. All right. Hey, I'm pretty excited. This is the first time I got to present something at the IC committee in the year and a few months I've been doing this project lead thing. So, so these are a couple of contributions that I'd just like to show you, and hopefully we can get them through. So next slide. I don't think I knew it. Yeah. So there's basic. Oh, did I not have an agenda? Oh, well, I thought there was one right before this. Maybe I forgot. I might have forgotten to copy it. Nope, that's it. That's all right. There basically there's two contributions. This is the first one. This data center cable infrastructure coloring schema. This was contributed by Fidelity. And the main reason that they wanted to do it is there's three objectives of this contribution. One, improve operational efficiency. So when you have the standard that they've set up for their networking and their in-rack power cabling, you can troubleshoot much easier and deploy the stuff. They hope to see about reducing cable costs. So if these start to get standardized in the industry, then these special, I call them special colored cables, get cheaper. And also reducing training time. If you have new technicians, it's a standard that many people know. Again, it's a reason for efficiency. Next slide. So that's an excerpt out of the, it's just an 8-page paper. It's fairly simple of the scheme that Fidelity has used. And they've used it over the past 10 years. So it's, it's something that's at least reasonably proven inside their inside their operations. And we hope that this kind of best practice paper would be able to provide value to operators who might not have adopted a color standard yet. So that is, I think that's it for the color schema. I have a link in the end of the PowerPoint. I have a link to this if you guys want to look at the paper. Again, it's pretty quick. Any questions on this one?
I just want to add one thing, Rob.
Yeah.
Rob, I just wanted to add one thing. I think that I really appreciate the how this was vetted out within the project. There was a lot of discussion and input from the group. They got pretty excited about this one. So as you say, it's not, it's certainly optional that somebody adopt this, but hopefully they can improve their efficiency in doing so. Yeah,
and the thing I like about it, again, Fidelity has been running data centers for quite a long time, so it's it really comes from a basis of experience. So.
Rob.
Yeah.
I just wanted to also add that, this is just another form of contribution that our customers and our members can make, that it doesn't need to be a spec or a design or a product, that something as simple as a color coding scheme can go a long way and could be very beneficial to the rest of the community members that, are looking at this. So just wanted to throw a shout out there for Fidelity, but also just, to make the IC aware that we're looking for all sorts of contributions, and they kind of come in all shapes and sizes.
What is the name you've picked for this color scheme?
I'm sorry, what's the name?
Yes.
There's no, it's just, if you back up a couple of slides, I mean, there's no name for this scheme.
That's perhaps my point. For this and the comment about specs or not specs, it might actually work best if you make a spec contribution with a name so people in industry can refer to this and everybody knows it in 2 years' time.
So kind of a little bit on the marketing side, that it's something simple to refer to. Yeah. Okay. That's good feedback.
It's always fun to have a naming up.
Have you had feedback about colors and issues with you know, dyes from flammability and smokability and all that sort of thing?
Well, we didn't get into that. We did have somebody on the review it who is a cable manufacturer, and so he had some good input on, you know, what's easy or hard to do from a manufacturing perspective, and again relating it to the TIA color scheme. So it all seemed to not be an issue. The one issue that kind of came up, and it's actually in the screenshot here, is sometimes fire marshals look at red and they're like, hey, you can't make, you know, these cables red because it can mean something else. But generally within the white space, and especially within the rack, most people agreed that that's usually not an issue.
Hey Rob, question about the feedback or I guess the first question is, did you get feedback from the project group on the color scheme?
Yes, we did. Yeah. This we've been talking about this about 6 months.
Got it. And what is the idea for changing this, or if someone would like to add a new type of cable, new type of color, how do we maintain that?
So that's actually a question that, I mean, revising this type of doc?
Exactly. Or extending it.
Right. That is a kind of a great question for the foundation, but I would assume, you know, we're going to have a revision number for this, and if there's a new contribution, or if there's we bring it up to the project team and we'll create a new rev to this.
To address that, Rob, I'm asking Bill to create a checklist for guideline documents like this too, just so that we have version control of it. And since Fidelity is submitting this as a guideline contribution, and they are the author for this, you know, any kind of updates would have to be controlled.
Yeah.
May I recommend that we call it spec contribution, and so that it can follow everything else that we do?
I defer to Bill on that one.
No, I'm okay with that. That's fine. Yep.
By the way, we were call it a spec?
Well, we were treating this as an information document, but it would be very easy to treat this as a specification. I guess the one caveat there is that if we do call it a specification, per our governance today, it would come to a formal vote through the IC. If we call it an information document, it simply gets posted to the portal after review and ratification from the project leads and the IC representative.
If we vote on this as a spec, is there a productization requirement that has to be met as well by the contributor?
Yeah, you have to be able to get cables in those colors.
Yeah, that's a good question. Again, listening from the conversations that went on over the last few months, I don't think there's any issue. I think all these cables are readily available. The biggest issue that I heard was that, you know, when they go to place an order for a cable, it's not something that they would stock in these colors. So they end up paying a setup charge and a premium for these cables. And if they simply got together and say, hey, I just want to buy the same color cable, that they're more likely to drive this as a standard and, you know, have this type of cable or color readily available and stocked.
More reason for this to show up at the marketplace. Somebody can.
I agree. That's a good point.
Great. Yeah. Yeah. So, Bill, I mean, I'll take your guidance on the spec thing. If I mean, is that something that can happen right now, or do we have to format the document and fill out the checklist?
Yeah, we'll have to make a couple of changes, but it should be fairly quick.
Okay.
So Bill, this is Archana. I only have, I guess, a process question. Because this is turning into a spec, do we need a CLA in place with Fidelity, along with, you know, they've already signed a licensing agreement?
Yep, we will.
Rob, do you think there could be intellectual property on the use of a color of wiring?
Right.
Yeah, this is a, I know this is a process question, and you know we've traditionally required that they you know submit a contribution license. I think in our governance today we actually allow for the use of you know Creative Commons licenses or you know an Apache license. So I think that there may be a workaround to use something as easy as Creative Commons.
Yeah.
Great. Hey, real quick, it's Bob O'Gray. I have one comment. I like this. This looks really cool, but I'm going to bring something up that I've come across in the past when it comes to colors.
Mm-hmm.
What if the data center operator or technician is colorblind?
Oh, yeah. We do talk about tagging and stuff, and I think that did actually come up in one of our calls. I can't remember the conversation, but they do talk about tagging, you know, tagging the cables also in the paper.
Yeah, that's what I was going to say. Maybe add a numbering scheme or a tagging scheme to it to avoid that.
Yeah.
Sorry to be ignorant, but isn't it somewhat color-coded already?
Yeah.
So going to a new color coding scheme is just, you know, kind of reaching unanimous decision on the colors.
Aren't those
Yeah, I think it's just a point of whether or not you know, are you inferring something from the colors or not? And since now you have a very kind of strict guideline, if you will, as to what the color means, you know, kind of, I guess, providing all operators the ability to decode in case they're colorblind. Whereas before it might have been random, so nobody cared.
Yeah. Yeah, the big case study is, you know, people grab the first cable they see to go fix something, and then, you know, after a period of time it becomes a mess. But,
yeah, the colorblind thing does come up quite a bit. That's a good call out, Bob. And that,
yeah.
you know, when I think about our data centers, you know, I don't know that we have any standards at all.
Again, I just want to bring it up because I stumbled across it when we were picking colors for a socket technology, and somebody said, hey, what if the person that's doing this assembly work is colorblind? And then the word lawsuit came up, and then we changed it. We put numbers on it.
Mm. All right. Well, if we go ahead and kind of work with the document to create it as a spec, I'll double check to see how we cover the tag part and see if we can. If it's not in there, we'll add it.
Okay. Yeah, I think that would address the problem. Cool.
Yeah, that's great.
Rob, this is Scott with the networking project. Does this spec intend to cover the networking cables also? Kind of looks like it down below there.
Yeah. Back up one slide. Yes. So those are power, and you can't really see that. You can see the networking up top, and yeah. So you know what? I think that would have been a big miss on my part to not include you. I did reach out to some of the other big the project teams, the rack team, and to make sure that they saw this and got any feedback from like Facebook and Google and stuff. But I didn't reach out to you guys. So I apologize.
Yeah, I think it'd just be good to make everybody in our group aware of this. I'm sure they'd be interested, and might even have some feedback for you.
Okay. All right, sounds good. Yeah, good idea. Sorry about that.
All right.
Great. All right, any other comments?
No, this is great. Thank you.
All right. All right, so go forward, I think 2 slides. I should be in charge of this, but all right. So the next contribution I'm going to talk about, which was done as the project team. We had multiple people from different companies jump in on this. It was mainly led by a contingent out of the UK and Europe, who became really active in our project, and specifically around co-location facilities. So the objective of this it's a document and a checklist. It's a reference guide for colo operators and tenants who are kind of unfamiliar with Open Compute hardware, who want to understand the fundamental facility requirements in order to deploy Open Compute gear into the space. And so we've been working on this actually a year, and you know, it's kind of the usual volunteer speed of working on stuff. If you go to the next slide, you know, there's two parts. There's an informational paper which is about 24 pages long, and it goes through most of the data center facility stuff and you know, considerations for deploying an Open Compute rack. And the 3 rack types that we do list inside the document is the you know, the Open Rack version 2, the carrier grade, and Microsoft Project Olympus. So those are mentioned, and so we kind of say, hey, what, you know, they're heavier racks, they could be denser, the power supplies are a bit different, you might have batteries inside the rack, and all the things with regards to that. And then a few best practices with regards to handling cooling and also network. There was some stuff with regards to a leaf and spine example in here. So this document is like, you'd read through it to understand the stuff. And if you go to the next slide, there's a checklist that this could be basically a center of a conversation that you'd expect a tenant to have with a colo operator to you know, understand, hey, can your data center handle it? What's the weight floor loading? You know, can I get these racks from the loading dock and roll them all the way to the data center? What's the height? You know, you guys do containment. Can you handle the density? Do you have 3-phase power to the rack? All that type of stuff. And so those are the two things. And like you said, this is a document, definitely one that's a living document. I think, you know, there's going to be maybe new rack types that come out. There's probably things that we're going to add and expand on this. So this is the first version, and we would hope that we can do some version control and roll out new versions of this. And the other thing about this work that we did, it's kind of also leading into a current project that's being led by a guy in Europe on kind of an assessment process for a colo. If we were going to look at all the attributes that a co-location facility might have, and to grade that in a way to make it, you know, how compliant is it with regards to OCP tenants and to host a OCP racks. So, questions on this submission?
Hey, Rob. Sorry, just got off mute.
No problem.
You know, I think we in London next week.
Yeah.
Let's sit down and talk about this. You know, a lot of good stuff here.
Okay. Yeah. Absolutely. We'll have time.
You know, and for everyone else, you know, later we'll be talking about, you know, we've got this thing that we call the universal power cord that we think can help lots of people, and you know, that would be something that, you know, we think would be beneficial if it made it into other systems. You know, we're putting it into not even Olympus stuff, but just general off the shelf deployments. So, but yeah, some good stuff here.
Yeah, and you know, and again, it's really for those you know, those folks that are unfamiliar with Open Compute. And the hope is that you know, people will feel more comfortable deploying Open Compute racks inside colo facilities. You know, it's maybe not as different as they thought, or you know, potentially it is. And hopefully,
this is primarily geared towards the rack facility interface, nothing outside of that.
Yeah, there's a yes, that is the main thing. We don't try to get inside the rack, you know, except for a description purpose. So floor loading, you know, cooling's front to back, you know, electrical system interface, and space from, again, getting the rack from the loading dock into the facility. There is, you know, and there was a networking guy on the team, and he really wanted to get, it's in the appendix, get in some, here's an example of a leaf and spine network and how it could look and how many ports you get and things like that. So a little bit of an interface there to the rack, but that's not a requirement. It's kind of more of additional information.
Got it.
Yeah, we don't cover chiller systems.
Yeah, the one thing I would want to, I think is important, we can put this up on the project page for the data center, and odds are it'll be looked over. I think publishing this somewhere more prominent, I don't know if there's a specific section on the site, Bill, or Michael, maybe point people to the document.
Right, so we created a new category, I guess it's probably been 6 months ago, called information documents. And again, once it gets approved, it'll go on to the web portal, and you can select information documents, and it pulls everything up. So beyond that, we can also do some marketing and messaging that we have a new spec that's been released, or information doc.
Yeah, I think it's just something along the lines of where you can get the attention of potential adopters who have questions, but this is always one of the biggest questions: is will it fill in my data center? So making sure that this can be found easily by them is important.
Yep. Great. Any other questions or comments? All right. So we expect that again, from the document will be PDF'd and put in the MyCloud and on the project page, a wiki. And this is it's currently a Google doc because it's a spreadsheet, and I don't know, we'll have to see if it makes sense to PDF it or just leave it like that. And we have a link to it in the document. So. All right.
All right, Rob, are you finished?
Thank you. I am done. Yeah, one more click, and I shared this with everybody in the foundation. This is the link to the documents if you want to take a look. So.
Okay.
Yeah.
And Rob, I have to say your OCP template slides look fabulous, so thank you for doing that.
You like that?
They look
yeah,
great.
You're welcome. All right. Thanks, everyone.
All right, Mark, you're up. Do you want me to go ahead and make you the presenter?
Yes, please.
Okay. You should see a box pop up. Hopefully.
Yep. It just popped up.
Great.
But I don't know which screen it's presenting.
There should be a drop down that allows you to pick which screen that you want, and you can do clean or even pick a specific application. But we are seeing your desktop with, sorry, it's a little small on my screen real quick. Microsoft Project Olympus checklist, yes.
Ah, that one.
Is that what everyone else is seeing?
Yes.
Okay.
All right. Do this. Okay. So Microsoft's been working on, the Project Olympus with OCP for a year. A year ago at London, we announced that we were open sourcing Project Olympus, and what that meant was we took and put our version 0.5 specifications out onto GitHub under Open Compute, so an Open Compute Project Olympus GitHub, and we put it out there with the specs early. We actually put some, we had like a universal motherboard with mechanicals and in our basic chassis, so that people could go off and innovate on top of the base system. And so what we're trying to do is we're trying to enable getting cloud hardware, getting hyperscale scalable hardware out to the industry faster. And Project Olympus is a very specific modular architecture, but it's based on the 19-inch rack, which is very popular in the industry. And so we're targeting the broad industry here. And so what we've really done is we've created a very different model of both for development and deployment than what OCP has ever seen. And so what you'll see is it's actually challenging some of the processes because people just haven't done things quite like this before. But what we I have the GitHub there. I should give a pointer to our wiki out there. But what we've found is we've got multiple ODMs and partners off delivering gear, beyond gear even beyond what we originally were doing ourselves. So basically we were doing an Intel motherboard based 1U and 2U server, and there's a whole lot more hardware out there that's all now Olympus compatible. And so some of the things that we have to talk about here is we're one of the early agreements with OCP was we're bringing in this. We've had this thing out on GitHub, and we've been talking about it at workshops and of course at the summit in the spring. And so what we decided to do was we would bring the entire contribution, this huge body of works, into the incubations committee or into the OCP all at once. And so rather than going to each individual committee and saying, hey, what about this piece? What about that piece? And and so we would bring it in all at once so that we could get this as a major contribution into OCP, and vendors can start putting their equipment out on the marketplace and selling this on the open market. And so the idea is we bring it in as one big piece, and then after that for upgrades and that sort of thing, pieces and parts would go through the through the representative committees. And so one of the things here, so on this slide I wanted to highlight how this is so different. So basically Microsoft owns much of the design, and we're contributing much of the design. And so we own the basic rack, the rack infrastructure, what we call a chassis, which is just a piece of sheet metal. We own the power distribution. We own the 1 and 2U servers. We own the Intel server motherboard. We own the JBOD, and we are going to have multiple vendors able to sell those items. And so the thing that is very different here is that so Microsoft is going to actually contribute the design for those pieces. So if you look at if you think about what's happened before, a company would contribute like a base specification, and then for instance, one of the vendors or one of the ODMs would contribute a design spec and the design collateral that meets that base specification, and then they get a like an accepted OCP accepted stamp of approval. Well, what we're challenging here is that Microsoft doesn't sell hardware, right? But next week we plan to have multiple vendors actually going to sell, putting Project Olympus hardware up for sale. You can buy one. Anybody can buy. Anyone can buy one. And so we're gonna have to figure out exactly how we deal with this. So assuming of course that that this contribution is accepted by OCP, we have to figure out how to.
So let me maybe provide a proposal here, because we actually dealt with this on the Facebook side. So we have released Tioga Pass, and it has a specific specification to it, and it follows that specification. When that spec was kind of highly leveraged by Inspur, we encouraged them to provide a different name for that project, because it's sufficiently deviated. So I don't know if in this case we're talking about literally the same design or a potential leverage that includes a deviation, but maybe that's something we can do. But I mean, I don't, I think the definition of OCP accepted terms are pretty strict, that they relate to what is being contributed, not what it's based off of. So if somebody contributed design files, I don't think we can prevent them from claiming OCP accepted, even if it's Olympus based. Does that make sense?
Yeah, that makes sense. The difference between the situation you had and our situation is these vendors are supplying exactly the same thing. So we have multiple suppliers building exactly the same hardware.
So maybe, and maybe that's part of a bigger discussion, and we don't have our CNI IC member here, but maybe that differentiation needs to happen through some level of testing, compliance, or certification. And because otherwise, I don't see how OCP can't kind of provide the Microsoft stamp, if you will, right, in this context. But maybe if there was an OCP certification process, it could provide a level of confidence. And if it's based off the sets of tests that Microsoft is running, and I believe you guys are planning to contribute anyways, maybe that's a way to triangulate this and get the confidence as well. I don't know if that will meet your concern, but just an idea.
Well, because we don't do compatibility testing, the way that we have handled this, and I envision the way we'll handle this is that we have a spec that's contributed. It's related to a design that is contributed by the same or different companies, and then we have a product that meets that design package and that spec, which could be one it could be one company, or it could be many companies. And through the checklist process, they actually have to acknowledge that they do meet the spec 100%. So I actually don't see any issue with in terms of our processes to be able to support this.
Ah.
And just as an example, we have cases today where we have one product and one design package that is sold from from a couple different companies. Once that product and design package is accepted, we simply do a checklist on for each reseller, and it's a very simple process, because they just acknowledge that they have to acknowledge that it meets the spec 100%, it meets the design package 100%, and that it's available for sale with a warranty. If they sign the agreement that states they'll use the OCP term and the logo correctly. So case in point, I think, so if you look at the HP switches, they're actually made by EdgeCore. So EdgeCore went through the process of getting recognition, and HP actually just signed the copyright logo and logo usage agreement, and then they are able to list it because it is in fact identical product.
Oh, that's good to know. That's good to know. That I wasn't aware that that we already had some examples of items that we were going that path already.
Yeah, actually, Mark, in this case, we've already signed agreements with 2 of your suppliers that'll be selling this the same thing, right? The motherboard. So the resellers are a step ahead.
Yeah. Yeah, and they're actually kind of nervous because the IC meeting is today and London is next week, and they're like, yeah, come on, Mark, what's happening? Yeah. So okay, so this concern really isn't that much of a concern, since it's not the same situation that Iran, that you brought up with a derivative variation, but it is, you know, basically they're building the equipment that Microsoft is buying, and we verified that it's all identical. You know, we go through an internal qualification CNI process to make sure that it's identical. So I wanted to talk some about the contributions that are coming out. It's pretty comprehensive, and you know, I was trying to highlight some of these. You know, I think as I went through the checklist, you know, I think much of the answers to these are yes, but I wanted to go through and talk about the design packages and like who's owning what and that sort of thing. And so the first is basically the rack, the chassis, the management section. So we have a specification for a rack. We don't own the rack. Rittal owns the current rack. So both of our suppliers are buying the same Rittal rack. But we do have a very clear specification. It's a derivative off of one of their, you know, one of their existing commodity racks. And just to make the point, you know, one of the reasons why we're doing EIA racks is that, you know, we could just go off and pick up a rack, make a few mods to it, and call it our own. And you know, and then we could get both a 42 and a 48U version, which is important to us. We have the chassis mechanical, which is actually really just it's just a simple sheet metal, stamped piece of sheet metal. It's something that snaps into the rack, and then your servers slide in on pins. You know, it's the same thing that we've been showing at the you know, at the summits and such. So we have the power, it's really power management distribution unit, and that's a pretty key piece of equipment to the rack. So you put these tracks into the rack, and then you snap in the PMDU, as we call it, and that provides dual AC feeds, actually 6 phases of 2 feeds, or well, 3 phases of 2 feeds each, and it provides a little bit of management through the back. We have a rack manager that mounts into the PMDU, and the rack manager is able to control, you know, do power control on the servers. But one of the cool things that we brought and that we're going to actually be demonstrating in London is we have the ability to we have power measurement inside of the PMDU, and the rack manager can measure that power, and you can set up a threshold. If you go above your threshold, it broadcasts a single signal to the servers to tell them, hey, you know, you're going above your power threshold, and then the servers will adjust accordingly. And so that's pretty cool. Now the next 2 items, the universal PDU is actually something that we're just going to use in our in our deployment. So we have deployments where we have a 2U assembly with 18 like C13 AC power receptacles. This is very common. And we also have a 0U. These are like tall vertical PDUs with a number of C13 receptacles on them. And what's special about these is that instead of bringing in a 3-phase power cord and having to build a PDU for every power cord version, we put on a universal power connector, and then that couples both, all of our universal PDUs, both of them use this universal power cord. So, it's just like when you go to another, when you go to another country and you may have a different power plug, but it's got an adapter that plugs into your power pack for your laptop. It's the same type of thing. We just plug in a different power cord for a different location. So today we've got at least 3, if not, I think we have 3 in production today, 3 different types of power cords, and we're working on a couple more. And those are being delivered by other companies. So, we have the rack manager, and we have also a standalone rack manager. We can use our rack manager in racks with normal off-the-shelf IT equipment as well, just by putting it into a 1U chassis with power. So then the next big thing is the servers that we're contributing. So we have a 1U and a 2U server. Those come with a power supply in them, and they come with fans in the back, and they're made to go with our universal motherboard. And so we've actually, when we think about the ecosystem, this is where we get the vast majority of our discussions with companies. So the companies come out and they say, hey, what about the 1U server? How do I build a motherboard that fits into that server? And then they say, well, how do I interface to the power supply? And so we decided we needed to give both the specification to the power supply as well as the software interface, because when people start creating their own motherboards, they have to write code that can actually talk to the power supply. There's a large number of features there.
Hey, Mark?
Yeah.
When you say not applicable for the power supply software interface, and what would the contribution be, and how would folks be able to modify it or upstream it? Is there any plan on that, or?
Yeah, well, it's I guess not applicable means design package. It's a software spec right now. It's based off of PM Bus version 1.2, and so it's a spec, and the spec can be revved and modified, but it's not something you can buy. I guess is what I was
saying. So the software is not going to be open or open sourced. There's just going to be a spec to implement, basically how to implement or what the requirements are for implementation.
Yeah. The interesting thing about the software, when you start talking the BM, as we've had discussions in the past, BMC software, BIOS, and the same thing goes with the power supply firmware. Those are just generally not available for open source. Once we get the OpenBMC stuff going, and actually we have OpenBMC running in some of our chassis, and when we get all this software stuff ironed out and we get our contribution out there, that interface on the server side will be part of our OpenBMC contributions, and then then it's becomes even easier to use. But on the power supply, the vendors are still, it's still proprietary code designed specific to their controllers and to their hardware designs. So maybe I should clarify that. It'll be the software will be part of the OpenBMC.
Yeah, I mean, just to be totally transparent, I think this is something that's not optimal on the open rack/Facebook contributions either. But kind of just being open with our IC here. This is, I think, one of the soft spots in our stack is power supply software. It's a little bit of a black hole. It does get in the way of adopters from a practical perspective. So something to keep in mind. I think in this situation it's better because the power supply is frankly contained within the server. So I think it's a little bit easier than when you do it on a rack level.
Yeah, I completely agree with you about the power supply firmware being a black hole. We have a lot of discussions internally about, hey, can we, take control of that firmware but then it turns into, well, the specific designs and that sort of thing, and it gets really hairy.
I think it's probably, first of all, hard to kind of pull out or disaggregate, right, if you will, from a pure architectural perspective as to how we got here. So that's one aspect, and I'm sure the vendors are not as excited to do this either. And then there's priority, right? Like we have bigger pieces of software we're still trying to figure out as a community as we do more open source. So hopefully one day we get there.
Yeah. So what we found is just about any power supply that you buy off the shelf, you can't update firmware and you can't do this, you can't do that. They've all got logs and interesting information in them, but it's all hidden and you can't get to it. And so we're trying to slowly break away those gaps in the interface, and you'll find a number of those documented here. So sorry, is there a question?
Oh, I just said sounds good. Go ahead, Mark.
Okay.
Hey,
all
Mark.
right. Yeah.
Hey, this is Bill. We had a conversation with Geist here about 2 or 3 weeks ago, and they mentioned that they may be interested in open sourcing the PDU that they do. So that may be, I don't know how much of the power supply that they do, but they're certainly, interested in sharing that work.
Yeah, and I think I believe that would be the universal PDU, and that would be that'd be great if they do that. It's very straightforward. I don't know if you've ever worked with the vendors to do PDU. The vast majority of the work isn't really necessarily around the IP. It's around how do you make it good for certifications and that sort of thing. And so, that would be pretty awesome if they do that.
Well, we'll continue to promote that with conversations.
Yeah, sounds good.
So, Mark, is there any firmware inside the universal PDU?
So in the rack manager, there's firmware. There's no firmware inside it. The universal PDU is unmanaged. We do not preclude there being a managed universal PDU, and we did talk to one vendor about that, but we never created that version. So no firmware inside of that.
So the next question: are you going to contribute or open your rack management?
Yeah, the rack management. I was trying to figure out exactly where it stands. It's very similar to our chassis management for the open cloud server, which we had out on GitHub. And so the rack manager software is also supposed to be out on GitHub somewhere, but it could be that it's moving into the question of the open source software that Bill, how do we manage that Bill touched on earlier. But yes, the rack manager software will certainly be open sourced. It's, you know, as of today, I'm not certain if I can get my hands on it, but it's all part of that, and it's all going to be open sourced.
Okay, thank you.
So next we go into motherboards. So, you know, we created this universal motherboard, which, you know, basically was we took our first Intel Xeon Scalable Processor motherboard, and we cleaned all the Intel IP out of it. You know, we took the Intel processors, the DIMMs, all of that. And what we left was basically, you know, you got the board heights, you got the I/O slots, and you have the mounting holes and all the connectors for power and things like that. So we kept that around, and we published that while we continued to build the Intel Xeon motherboard. And the thing that came great outcome from this was that another vendor came along and built an AMD EPYC motherboard that's a drop-in, 100% compatible to our Intel board. And so now the same Olympus chassis, the 1U and 2U servers, now can accept either of those boards. And then another vendor, Ingrasys, came along and said, hey, we're going to work on a Cavium Thunder X2 ARM64 motherboard, and we're going to, you know, at least work to make that thing, you know, drop-in compatible as well. And so, you know, they're having a few challenges with that because the boards are a little bit different. And what I want to have here is, you know, Qualcomm is off there building a board which looks different because they have a different architecture, but they're all building motherboards to go into the Olympus infrastructure. And so what we've been trying to create was an ecosystem where you could build more hardware and have more options that drop in more easily, more quickly. You know, we're seeing that come to fruition with, you know, Intel, AMD, Cavium, and Qualcomm, four different vendors' CPUs, all basically inside of the same infrastructure. So the AMD and the Cavium stuff, you know, aren't, you know, those are not owned by Microsoft. We have our disk expansion system. It's you know, it's getting pretty far along. We're far enough that the specs are done, but we still need more revs of the hardware, you know, to finish it up. And so we have our 88 hard drive disk expander along with the power supply, and we also have the hyperscale GPU expansion unit HGX1 that, you know, both of those we showed at the last spring at the summit. And so that's that's what we're contributing. I have a number of slides here that go into more details about these items, but I didn't think we wanted to, you know, I'll make sure that these slides, I get these slides out. I'll make a few corrections in here, and I'll make sure these slides get out to everyone. So I wanted to talk about some, you know, some timelines. So, you know, as I talked about before, this is another unique type of contribution to OCP that we're bringing in this whole thing. And so, you know, we're contributing this now. I guess today is the second, not the first. We're going to be announcing that we've contributed V1.0 to OCP, And Michael knows I've been feverishly working to get all of the license agreements are signed. And the thing is, we have two vendors. When we have two vendors that are going to put this Olympus hardware up for sale, and they are going to go live, coincident, or at least one of them is going to go live coincident with the event in London. And so we're looking for feedback from the incubations committee. I'm going to have to do a better job of getting the list, the list of all the checklists. I think there's I don't know, somewhere 16, 18, 19 different checklists that go along with this and get this out. And then and then of course we request a vote. And so Bill, I think you had some ideas on timeline for the vote.
So Bill is getting on a ferry, so he just messaged me. He may be able to get us.
I'm still here. Mark, I think there's probably one or two checklists that are critical in order to support the suppliers. So I guess the question is, if we get the checklist done for, let's say, the 1U or 2U server, and we get that done, let's say, in the next 24 hours. The question is for the IC is how do they want to handle that? Yeah. Is it possible between now and November? What is it, November 8th or 9th?
7.
So I know we're not going to do 18, but I don't think you don't have to have 18 done. You really want to have probably one done.
Bill, would you mind? I wasn't able to hear.
Sorry, I didn't catch that.
I think it was Michael saying something, but I don't know what it's.
Michael, did you say something?
Yeah, Bill broke up just for 1 second. I wasn't sure if it was just my connection or if other folks had missed something as well. So I just wanted to check on that. It's just my connection, not a big deal. I think I may just be going in and out.
Yeah, so just speaking for the foundation, Mark, well, let us know how to prioritize it. I think we're probably working on a 1-year or 2-year server as our top priority. We'll work as quickly as we can. We have that. The question really is back to the how you want to handle this.
Yeah. Okay. Well, we'll make sure that we have these 3 checklists done very soon. That they should be actually very close to being done already. But we'll make sure we have those done. I'm targeting by the end of the day, and I'll have those the pointers to the 3 checklists out to the IC by the end of the day.
Hey guys, I think we lost Bill. That sounds good, Mark. Yeah, just understand there's a time crunch on here, so just try and get us as much of the material as quickly as possible, and then Mike will line up the deadlines for the voting and the feedback accordingly.
Yeah. Okay. Will do. Okay, so make sure you, if you have any questions, if you have any questions or anything, feel free to reach out to myself. I'm sure CMAC is happy to answer questions too.
Will do. Thanks, Mark.
Great.
Awesome. Thanks, Mark.
Thank you.
Any other anything on Project Olympus for now, or can we go on to the next one, which is Omar? And I'm not sure if Omar is on the call.
Yeah, I don't see Omar here.
Ron, are you
Hey
able to
guys,
go?
no, I just wanted to say Omar was traveling back from a meeting earlier today, so I don't know if he's made it back. So, he might be a little late. I can text him and find out.
And Michael,
This is fine.
stepped out. Ron stepped out for 15 to 30 minutes. I don't see him on here right now.
Okay. In looking at the agenda, I hope maybe Omar can join us in a few minutes. I think the Big Basin submission is the next one on. However, I do know it's pretty big time difference over there. Winslow did email myself and John Stewie, said he would be available. Oh, he is, and he's early. Fantastic.
Timed it perfectly.
Hi, Winslow. So let's go ahead with Big Basin. Winslow, can I go ahead and let you share your screen?
Yes, go ahead. Thank you.
You should see a box pop up. You can select which screen and which application on the drop-down box. Perfect.
So can you guys see my screen then?
Yes.
Sure can.
Oops. Okay, so then let me just get started then, okay? So thank you for giving me this time today. Quanta QCT would like to contribute the RACO-X Big Basin to the community. So as we know, artificial intelligence, machine learning is poised to reinvent businesses in every industry. And as it branches to new verticals, hardware to power AI algorithms will require higher performance and better efficiency. So the Big Basin is another milestone for Quanta QCT in our continued dedication to provide solutions for every workload to the OCP community. The product contribution is based on the Big Basin JBox spec that was contributed by Facebook. It's the industry's first JBox, which is a pure GPU acceleration box, which supports up to 8 SXM2 GPU modules. The benefits of using the SXM2 module form factor is the support of the ME-Link, which provides a high bandwidth GPU interconnect that also allows for high energy efficiency. The form factor of this module will also allow for better heat dissipation in comparison to the conventional dual with GPU cards, which in turn will also allow the module to perform at much higher flops. This enclosure is also designed with flexible GPU topologies for different workloads, which I'll get into later. Are there any questions on this page? Okay, I'll move on. Okay, so this is a look at the front and the rear of the system. Sorry about that. Okay, so this is the front and the rear view of the system. Okay, so if you're looking at the top here, we have the front. These are 4 full height, half length, full bandwidth slots, and these will be used for the bridge card and the retirement cards, which was also contributed by Facebook. This is the method of delivering PCI packets from the host server to this enclosure. Here we have two other PCIe by 8 expansion slots that's going to be used for InfiniBand FDR, which can be used for GPU Direct or a GPU cluster. So we have also the dedicated management port and some debug ports, common debug ports. Okay, so on the rear of the system, on the bottom picture here, we have we support up to four heavy-duty 92 by 76 dual rotor fans, and this is a 3U chassis with a DC in it here. So with these fans, we're able to provide better cooling thermal conditions that allows the big basin to run at 35 degrees ambient, and this means that 8 SXM2 GPU modules can basically run with air and no AC. Look at the top view of the system. We have the I/O board to the left. Okay, so the left here is the front side, the right side here is the rear. So to the left front of the system, we have I/O board. This is a 2 GPIe, 2 PCIe Gen 3 by 8 slots that I was talking about. 8 SXM2 modules here. 4 full height half-lane PCIe Gen 3 full bandwidth slots for the bridge cards and for the retimer cards. This is the PCIe switches, and then we do have a mid plane in the back here that we did integrate a BMC into for management. Okay, so getting into the topologies, this is the first topology that we worked on. So we have a single host. The host previously was the QCT Leopard Cape, so that was a Grantley platform, but this will be able to support Grantley and Pully platforms. So this is a single host with a retimer card that links PCIe by 16 into a non-retimer card, where the signal is then pulled to a PCIe switch and then is cascaded to the SXM2, 2 SXM2 modules, and then another POX, and on for another cascade. So this is going to be the cascade topology. There's going to be 3 cascades in this topology. Are there any questions on this page? Okay, I'll move on. Okay, so the second topology, topology 2. So basically, same thing. We have one host, but the PCIe retimer card has by 8 to this bridge card here, where it then get to the POX, and then from POX we have a cascade into the second POX. So here we have another by 8, which is pulled to another bridge card, and then a single cascade here. So basically, we have a by 8 here. The reason for this topology is that back in the Grantley platform, the motherboard was only able to support a single by 16 slot, which is required for the host card. But in the next platform, the Skylake platform, we will actually be able to support 2 by 16. So technically, right now we are validating by 16 and by 16 here. So you'll be able to provide 32 PCIe lanes to the big basin. Okay, moving on.
Is that on the Tioga Pass motherboard where you'll be able to have 32 lanes?
Right, Tioga Pass motherboard.
And that's out of the riser card?
Yes, out of the riser card after that.
Got it.
All right, so this is another topology that we're playing around with, where we'll have 2 hosts. So basically, it could be either, like you said, the Leopard Cave or the Tioga Pass. It could be any host system with a retimer card with PCIe by 16 here. So basically, effectively, they'll have 4 SXM2 modules with NVLink here, and then another second host here, and they'll also be able to read, detect 4 GPU devices here. So this is a more balanced mode for AI simulation. Okay, quick look at the big basin specs. So it supports up to 8 NVIDIA Tesla P100s. It also does support, the board was laid out, so it does support the next generation B100s. The GPU memory is 128 gigabytes of high bandwidth memory, generation 2 RAM. 4 PCI Gen 16 full height slots. These full height slots are for the breadboard to connect the PCIe signal. 2 expansion slots also for GPU Direct. It has an integrated BMC chip, ASC 2500, and the common management port 67. This system does fit, is compatible to the ORB2 rack, and it's a 3 open rack unit system. Okay, quick look at the baseboard. So we have 8 GPUs. That's what I said, that because these are a module form factor, they do support a 2U heatsink. This heatsink does allow the GPU module to perform at much higher teraflops. Each GPU will be able to take in 40 amps. Okay, quick look at our baseboard design. We have the PLXs here. These are the connectors for the GPU modules. This is the block diagram for topology 1. So from here we have the PCIe signal from the host CPU 0 that connects to the mini-SAS HT. And this does then expand to the PLX, which would thus feed XSM, the two SXM2 modules. Through the middle plane, we do have a cascade here where we connect to the to the second PLX, and this PLX again will provide PCI by 16 to each GPU module and so forth. Okay, so topology 2, as I said earlier, we have by 8 from host CPU 0, and then we have another by 8 from the same host, same CPU 0. So currently in this topology 2 right here, we do see PCIe Gen 3 only by 8. That was because the system was first initiated when we were still using the motherboard. But in the Skylake platform, we will be able to support by 16 by 16 here. And then we can see that in this topology, because we only need a single cascade from each PLX, the 1 and PLX 3, we are able to support the 100G NIC hardware for InfiniBand EDR here and here. Okay, so both the Big Sur that will be previously contributed and the Big Basin are ready now. So these are available that you can contact us at QCT. The next few slides are SXM2 module introductions, but I believe I don't really need to get into these, right?
Yeah, probably not. Don't need that for now. That's okay.
Yeah. So are there any questions?
So can you give us a quick overview of the contribution? Is it a spec? Is it what pieces are you including?
Okay, so the spec contribution was provided by Facebook. This is going to be a design and a product contribution.
Okay. Any more questions? All right. Thank you.
All right, thank you.
Hey, Michael, do we have all the material we need to move this to a vote or not yet?
On Big Basin, we have all the material that we need.
Okay, so the only thing is,
I believe, I'm sorry, let me ask you. I believe we do have all the material, but then we would like to also add a BOM contribution.
Sorry, I missed. Can you repeat that?
Okay, so because the RapidX Big Basin, I believe this is an inspired contribution that does not require a BOM contribution, like the bill of materials. But we will be adding the bill of materials, and I'm hoping to get that to Michael and John by the end of this week.
So they have everything that is required. The other material he's referencing is highly desired for an inspired contribution, and they're working to get that to us as well. But they do have all the required documentation.
Okay, so let's wait and see how much of the additional documentation we can get, and then do a quick review and move to a vote.
Great. We'll most likely be able to call for a review as soon as we get that. So fingers crossed, possibly as soon as tomorrow, EOD.
Got it.
So I have a question. Just dawned on me that the reason this is inspired is that there's a motherboard design is not included. But is the motherboard design a standard motherboard that you can use any motherboard in the chassis?
So this is a GPU box only. There is no motherboard inside this design. The motherboard would be using any host systems, for example, the Tioga Pass.
Okay, remind me again why. I thought there was a particular component that was missing.
I believe you're referring to the big cert that I previously contributed before. And that was an inspired contribution, but we did not contribute the motherboard.
Okay, yeah, I think I am confused. Sorry.
Yeah, but for the big basin, we will be contributing the GPU baseboard and the I/O board and the mid.
Okay, my bad. Yep, I confused it.
Hey, folks, real quick, it's Bob Legray. I have to drop. I have a conflict at the top of the hour. Looks like we're wrapping up anyway, so.
Yeah, good. Thanks, Bob.
All right. See you guys.
Thanks, Winslow. Appreciate the overview.
Thank you.
So, Amir, the question that Omar wanted to bring back into the IC was whether or not contributions could move forward. You had raised a concern about wireless products, so those contributions were put on hold.
Okay.
Prior to the last. So he just wanted to have that discussion and allow him to disposition those. We have had numerous discussions. I have personally had a discussion even again today with Rocky to make sure that the wireless access point, or I should say access points in general, whether or not they could be included and within the scope of the networking community. And Rocky he doesn't have any concern with us including access points.
Yeah, no, I think it's a worthwhile conversation to have with the IC in general. There was obviously there was an inconsistency with the vote as well. I believe we voted for one of them and accepted it, and some other ones we didn't vote. So it would definitely be good to have that conversation. Is there anything urgent about that, or can we hold that until the next meeting?
The only urgency is that we did disposition one. I think it happened before we actually, before Amir had a chance to chime in on all the question on whether or not we include these. So 2 of them were put on hold. 1 of them actually did 3.
Right, but any reason now that we need to move forward, or obviously we'd like to have the conversation now. If Omar's not here, it would be a little bit of a challenge, since he has a lot of the background for that. So would it be okay to hold that at the next IC meeting to have that conversation then?
Yeah, I don't think there's anything that's. I don't think there's any urgency other than just closing the book on this.
Yeah, it's a loose end we have out there. I agree.
Yeah.
Yeah, this is Scott. There's no urgency as far as the deadline or anything like that goes. It's just that EdgeCore had done all the work and gotten it all the way through to the point where we could vote on it, and then sort of hit the brakes, and so they're left hanging, and that's the only thing we want to close up.
That makes sense.
So can we put this on the agenda for the leadership summit, for the leadership sprint in December.
Yeah, that'd be a great next time to talk about it. Sure.
Okay, let's do that.
Hey, this is Mark. Since we're winding down, I'm gonna jump to my conflicting 3 o'clock meeting.
Thanks, Mark.
All right. Yeah, thanks, Mark.
Bye.
Okay, sounds good. I think any other items before we close off this call?
I believe those were the only items on the agenda. Yeah, unless someone has something that they want to bring up.
I guess Omar never got in, so I guess we'll do that another time.
Yeah, we're going to discuss that at the Leadership Summit in December.
Okay, perfect.
Okay, sounds like nothing else then. Thanks, everyone.
Sounds good. Yep, thank you.
All right, take care, everybody.
Thank you.
Bye-bye.